happens when an autonomous vehicle gets in an accident with
Right.
another one, and it's like they have the autonomous driving system from one company, parts from another company, manufactured by a different company, maybe with like an operator from another company sitting in the front seat. Like, who's at fault? What happened here? What's the equivalent of the black box inside of an airplane?
Hello, and welcome to Proof of Talk, the cryptocurrency podcast where we invite leaders and builders into the space to come on and talk about their experience in the industry, as well as the projects and products that they've been building. My name is Andre, and I've been in the cryptocurrency space since 2017. I've also helped co found Algorithmic crypto trading platform Aesir that enables users to quickly and easily automate their trades while managing the risk. I'm here today with Rob, who is the co-founder of DIMO. That's a blockchain-based IoT solution. How are you doing, Rob?
I'm doing great. Great to talk to you.
Yeah, well, thanks for accepting my invitation, man. I think it's such a big idea, and I just want to break that down into smaller chunks. But I just want to start with how you initially got into crypto. It's a question that I like to ask everyone, and it's always like a different answer and a unique story behind that.
Yeah, it might be a different answer. I historically worked in finance, and I worked in finance with so the old CEO of Zappos was revitalizing downtown Vegas. I was working on that project, commercial real estate investing, small business. We were doing music festivals, schools, all kinds of stuff, and we were closely related to Zappos. I was doing finance there, and we were implementing
Uh-huh.
holacracy there. Holacracy
Okay.
is this like managerless, decentralized organization. There's no managers. Like you're the lead link of a circle. The circle is where work gets done, and uh, as the lead link, you're the bridge between the broader circle above you. You're kind of
Right.
the boss. You end up being the boss. But the idea was to try to make it more of a decentralized organization with more clear governance and all that. I I think it's such a cool idea, but
It
holacracy
is.
ultimately is not. I wouldn't recommend that to any company, especially any large company. A little bit incomplete, but I think there's things you can do. But I still love this idea of like decentralized organizations. As a finance person, you kind of see the inefficiency with the way
Right.
that people transact across systems and records are kept and incentives are created, that kind of thing. And then when I came across Ethereum, it was really like that DAO use case and the
Oh,
supply
damn.
chain
Yeah.
use cases, identity and voting use cases, where I was like, oh my God, this could really solve a lot of these like decentralized scalable org issues and be applied that way. So that's what got me into it. I started going to conferences. I eventually crashed the Consensus Ethereal conference, talked to a bunch of people there. I met some folks at some meetups, and then after bumping into them enough times, got a job interview and worked at Consensus for 4 years. So I got to see. I was there 2017 to 2021. Got to see a bunch of different eras of blockchain, like the ICO phase, the DeFi summer, CryptoKitties broke Ethereum for a little bit. Like it was cool to be there for all those different eras, see a lot of different things, and obviously a lot of things with DIMO are modeled after kind of the best things I saw from different projects while I was there.
That's cool, man. That's super exciting. I feel like that was such a wild time for crypto, for the Ethereum ecosystem. Like the ICO and just pre-ICO era was absolutely nuts. I was actually speaking to one of the former core Ethereum developers, and the guy who's actually wrote a good chunk of the DAO smart contract. Um, and it was really interesting to kind of hear about how the DAO was started, what it was supposed to be, what it ended up being, and also Christoph is the guy's name. He also in the meantime, he kind of changed his mind on the concept of DAOs. Like in his idea is that DAOs are the like ideal form of a decentralized organization, but in many cases they don't necessarily, they're not accountable to the local law. So how do you bring that, to a compliant regulatory, like a system that's compliant from a regulation standpoint? We still don't have an answer to that, but it's good that gets people thinking, I guess.
I I think the regulatory side is actually a little bit easy. I don't think that's the biggest issue that DAOs face today. With holacracy, with DAOs, I think one thing people forget about with decentralized organizations is systems need to allocate resources effectively. They need
Yeah.
to incentivize good behavior. They need to propagate information scalably. And that's why when you have like a centralized, and whether it's a 15-person company or a 15-person village, you just can, like, one person can run it. Like, you guys do this, you guys do this, you guys do this. Make sure everyone's pulling their weight. Let's plan this out. You can just kind of run things that way because there's not that much information. The system's not is maybe not scalable, but it's manageable. The issue comes when you're this big distributed thing,
Mm.
and you think about like what's the most effective decentralized system we have, like the economy, like a city, an economy. That's a decentralized system that produces things. You think about like what is New York City but a large company that produces nightlife and financial services and so on and so forth, and it's not centrally planned, right? And what makes that possible is the profit incentive, court systems, contracts, currency that you can use as a medium of exchange that creates right incentives. So I think with DAOs, with holacracy, to make them more effective at producing whatever it is they're trying to produce, a lot of times that's what it is. A lot of DAOs are kind of the hallmark of the early DAO movements. It's just like everybody get in here, join the Discord. Thousands
Right.
of us, we're all equal. We all just vote with our tokens or vote with our one person one vote or token weighted voting. And do you have an incentive to vote? No, not really, unless you think it's really cool. Do you have incentive to be like an expert on all things and be up to speed and ready to vote on everything? Like, no, not really. And that's like in a city, if we try to operate that way, wouldn't work either, right? So anyway,
Yeah, I
I'd
mean,
love to see things
100%.
shift. That was yeah. That was a lot of what I
Yeah.
worked on at Consensus. I still love. You can tell I still love the kind of like decentralized org design and efficient systems uh, stuff, and I expect big things. In the future. We're still not quite there yet
Yeah.
on a lot of
No,
like
I
useful
love thinking
communities.
about those things. I think they're really fascinating. I think governance, whether you're talking governance for a project or governance for a country or whatever, it's super interesting. I actually have this idea that I think the current kind of governance system in most countries is broken because people are in charge of systems and processes and people are corruptible. And I'm probably not the only one to mention it, but just think about having a sort of kind of like a centralized or a distributed intelligence that can kind of uh, make decisions based on what everyone thinks, to have like true decentralized governments. I've been toying with that idea for a while. I'd love to see a simulation of it on a computer or something to see like what's going to happen if you just let an AI make the decisions based on what people want.
I'd love to see that simulation too. There's always though when you add the human element to it, what happens? But yeah, that's that'd be cool.
So anyway, then you've had consensus, and then you've moved from consensus. You co-founded Dimo.
Right. Yeah, I had the chance for a while to start, and just being at Consensus. There's opportunities to found other companies for a while. I was really picky about it, not to sound like I'm trying to be so morally righteous, but there's so many projects where it's like the blockchain element of it is kind of adjacent or somewhat unnecessary. That the token is just kind of bolted on so you can have one. Um,
Mm,
I think with Demo, we should get into what Demo is, but I can make the argument for why Demo really could not succeed without blockchain. It is a use case that adds a lot of value to the world that would not be nearly as good without blockchain. So I love the opportunity to kind of come in and work on something like that, where we're really not only are we doing something innovative and new that gives us an unfair advantage and a first mover advantage on it, but we're also kind of like displaying for the world what blockchains can be used for. And I think early internet, people could only really think email and like a catalog online. And it took people putting
mm,
out video stream. I mean, there's also like better bandwidth and whatever, but
right.
video streaming and like ride hailing and other kinds of like applications that kind of like reshape people's minds as to what the internet could be used for. And now everyone's like, oh, just take us for granted. Of course, we'll have smartphones, we'll use all these apps and whatever, but people couldn't even imagine them 20 years ago. So I love the chance to be one of those use cases that kind of shows the world like why blockchains matter for more than just profile picture NFTs and money transfers, which are both great things, not discounting them at all. But people are not yet convinced that that is like, on the same level as AI or electrification of vehicles or, rockets to Mars or whatever in terms of its like technological importance and how profound and innovative it is. But I think it is. I think it is at that level. I think it's above that level, maybe for some of those things in terms of what it'll do for society. So yeah, time to show it.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's a really new technology, right? And that is always the challenge of a new technology. You have NFTs which are mainly being used right now for art. Now the art market itself is really tiny, right? I work in the art sector. It's a God, I don't want to say the wrong number, but it's like $2-3 billion business a year, like industry a year. No, sorry, the number is 65 billion. I just remember it's a $65 billion industry. It's tiny. Like the market cap of Bitcoin is nearly a trillion, right? Right now, it's a tiny industry. So having NFTs on top of that, which is just digital art, another factor of like uh, diving deeper into an already a sub niche. Of course, it's not going to have like mainstream attention. I think the real revolution is going to happen when people realize that we can use NFTs to, create ticketing systems or items in games, or just ownership of different devices, even physical devices, right? Because it's also kind of what you guys do at DIMO, and kind of brings us into the way you use blockchain technology and crypto at DIMO. Um, so do you maybe want to just give a quick overview of the like high level idea, and then we can just move into like the car, more like the car mechanics of it?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So at DIMO, we're building a open connected mobility platform for digitally and connected vehicles. Like, so what does that mean? That's like, that doesn't usually land with people right away. I have to kind of explain it. Think about cars, cars as a piece of mechanical hardware are some of the most like perfected and advanced technology there is. You just roll up to any gas station. Even the fuel pumps are pretty technologically savvy with knowing when to shut off. Goes in the fuel tank, fuel pumps, you know, take that from your tank, they filter it, turn it into mist, inject it into the engine at just the right point, boom, whatever. Repeat that thousands of times a second and or a minute, and for millions of hundreds of thousands of miles. Like mechanically, so impressive. Digitally, they're kind of stuck in the era of like the landline or flip phone, like cellular flip phone, in terms of like how smart they are.
Right.
Um, and people don't like it really until you got a smartphone and got used to it. You didn't really think that there was much more you could do with a flip phone. So people kind of just like still are in that mode with vehicles where they think their current level of connectivity is enough. But usually for most people, it's like your connectivity is you have a remote that can unlock the car from 5 feet away. And that's like as smart as your car is. And like meanwhile, your doorbell is connected to your Alexa, which can recognize your voice, and like all this kind of stuff. But your car, this probably the most expensive thing you own, if not the second most, if you own a home, is your vehicle,
Yeah.
and that's its level of sophistication. Newer cars, like a lot of Fords, a lot of GMs, whatever, they have the Ford Pass app, My BMW. You can like lock and unlock the car, and that's fun. You can maybe remote start it. You can see its fuel level. You could maybe book a maintenance thing, but that's still very single player. That's like the flip phone with, comes preloaded with the LG applications on it, and it's not really a smartphone. Tesla's definitely venturing into the BlackBerry era
Mm.
of like sophistication. It's still really what a BlackBerry was. It was a smartphone, or it was a flip phone with more bandwidth and a browser, but still just like really first party applications. You're kind of locked into their thing. The iPhone with the App Store, there's an app for that. You can download whatever you want. Developers can reach millions and millions of people instantly. It was such a major shift from that. And that's what we're building with DIMO. It's a long way of getting to that, but we're adding the ability for any car from any automaker to connect to this network, establish its digital identity based on blockchain, and then stream data from the car and receive commands back to the car, like lock, unlock, that kind of thing. And the reason it has to be on blockchain is because unlike phones, it's like Google and Apple, right? With automakers, it's it's hundreds of different automakers, and the biggest ones, the biggest gorilla in the room is like Toyota with 14% of the cars on the road. Most of them have like 6%, 7%, 2% of the name brands. So you need systems that interoperate. You need kind of a global standard. And by the way, too, it's a bunch of different fragmented insurance companies, banks, mechanics are mostly independent. Used car dealerships are like, Bob's Hyundai of Western Massachusetts. Like they're all very fragmented. And when you look at what happens when you try to build on Twitter, they revoked the API. Sorry, Tweetbot. Try to build, games on Facebook. Sorry, Zynga, revoking the API. You build things on Apple. Oops, 30% app tax. Like these automakers have already shown that they're not that interested in trusting corporate entities that GM pulled CarPlay out of its vehicles recently to take more control back of just the infotainment center. So much less like the infrastructure that the cars communicate and kind of interoperate on would be kind of a
Right.
non-starter. But if you do it on blockchain, then all of a sudden you can pass the Bahamas test. It can be, hey, you don't have to trust DIMO, like you don't have to trust the founders of DIMO or Digital Infrastructure Inc., our kind of labs entity that we work in. You don't have to trust us at all. We can help you. We can provide some services. But if you want to run your own node, if you want to refer to the blockchain as a source of truth, operate this protocol, much like email protocol, RSS, TCP/IP for internet, then you don't have to trust us. And now all of a sudden there actually is a value proposition that is palatable, given you're not having the lock-in and platform risk trade-offs. So what happens when every car is connected to the internet and has connectivity between developers and other cars and sensors and identity and data that can is portable from owner to owner, is then you get really efficient peer-to-peer car sharing systems, Web3, Uber, where the take rate is like an order of magnitude less than current Uber. You have a smarter insurance and DeFi loans, and secure communications between vehicles and sensors that help it drive itself. And you get out of your car at a parking garage and it parks itself and it pays its own meter. Like there's so many smart things that we can do with vehicles once they're more digitally connected. And DIMO is a platform building that. So you can connect your car now. A lot of this, we're building these building blocks already, and a lot of this works. It's more a matter of adoption and getting people to build on the developer platform. But yeah, it's the DIMO mobile app, and we have 45,000 cars connected now, and you can add yours today.
That's cool. Let me just say that I love the comparison that you made between car manufacturers and mobile phones. I
Yep.
love the idea of comparing them with the flip phone, and then Tesla being the BlackBerry. And what really got BlackBerry to basically shoot itself in the foot is the fact that it didn't innovate, right? It didn't continue to innovate. It
Right.
innovated up until a certain point, and then when the touchscreen came, when iPhone announced the touchscreen, BlackBerry was like, well, that's just a fad. No one's gonna just use a touchscreen. That's impossible. So I'm thinking that's exactly the kind of point that we are right now from your guys' perspective, the product that you're building in the car industry. I'm like, probably a lot of the big manufacturers out there don't consider that a blockchain based IoT solution and decentralized marketplace for car apps is needed right now. Um, but I guess time will tell whether that's going to change their mind. I think it's really cool that you have 45,000 cars already on that. And I also wanted to ask you, how do you like, if I want to connect my car to DIMO, how do I go about doing that?
Yep. So if you have a newer car, and let's say you have a Tesla, and I do want to say Tesla, I compare them to BlackBerry, but so far they've been making all the right moves when it comes to
Right.
how they're approaching the future. So unlike maybe the way that other legacy tech companies have been, Tesla has formally opened up their APIs, and there's a Tesla Fleet API, and they're kind of letting developers build on top of their API in a much more open way than other tech companies have in the past. The issue still remains, like if you're a developer, do you want to build, it's bad enough to build an app for iOS and Android. You want to build an app for each automaker individually, that's a nightmare.
That's crazy.
But and all different, you know, standards and whatever. So that's what DIMO is. Even with Tesla in a more open position, like, that really helps DIMO, and we're meant to kind of complement them, not compete with Tesla. But
Right.
anyway, so if
So
you have a
sorry.
newer car like a Tesla, or you have a connected Ford, GM, whatever, a lot of newer cars past couple of years, they come with like a connected app. You can log in with that email and password and just connect your car that way to DIMO and start seeing data. And the cool thing about that too is that, if you have the app already, you might have the Ford Pass app, so you can do a lot of things with your Ford. But if you have a Ford, your wife has a Chevy, your daughter has a Subaru, you can connect all three and manage them all in one application. Better user
Right.
experience, better UI. So we have that way to connect. And then we also have this. This is our original hardware device. It's a little larger. It just plugs into the OBD port. We have a much smaller one now that runs on the Helium LoRaWAN network. That's a third the price. They're both currently out of stock, sold out. But those connect to any car 2008 and up. So pretty much any vehicle in US, Canada, Europe, including UK and Turkey and Switzerland, can connect today.
That's cool. Yeah, I was just gonna say because you've said something that was really interesting about building applications that then making sure that they're compatible across every car manufacturer, and that's kind of where you come in because you enable this compatibility with DIMO. So, do you, like how does it work? Do you guys abstract away from the car manufacturer? Do you build a software that's say bespoke for every car manufacturer firmware or OS or something, and then abstract that away for the user?
That's a good question. We built a native integration into Tesla, again, because their API is formally documented and open. We use a company called Smart Car for most other automakers. And
Right.
this device is produced by a company called AutoPie out of uh, Denmark.
Right.
And these are
So
manufactured in Poland. And then
supposedly has a Raspberry Pi running in it.
more than supposedly, we ripped these apart and confirmed it. They did
Right.
have Raspberry Pis inside of them. Yeah, they're cool. Last year we brought one to ETH Denver, which we're going to again in a few days. I don't know when this is going to air, but we're about to go to ETH Denver. That dates when we're recording this. And last year when we went, we had a Ford Bronco there. We had the AutoPie plugged in, and we were running Mario Kart on the AutoPie to a TV in the back of the Ford Bronco. So the device was both capturing data for the vehicle and powering, uh, N64 Mario Kart in the back in the trunk at the same time. So yeah, it can do quite a bit, and it has a bunch of ports on it. We'll eventually try to do some things with that, maybe dash cams, antennas. We actually built a prototype Helium LoRa mapper that could plug into that and just kind of does like mapping validation.
Right.
The other device kind of does that as well because it is a actual Helium IoT device. And yeah,
That's cool. That's cool. So how does the data sharing aspect of it work uh, from a user
right.
perspective, and also like the data that I have access to? I know I had a look on your website. I kind of watched some demos where you have the battery percentage showing or the fuel percentage showing whether you need an
Yeah,
oil change or repair or anything like that. So supposedly just connects to the computer and then feeds you this information on your mobile app, but also shares it or gives you the option to share it with a friend or someone or the
right.
network itself. Like, I think that's really interesting, like the sharing aspect of it and how that works.
In terms of what we capture, we're trying to get everything. And in terms of what we're able to send back to it too, like whatever we can do, we will. This device, for a lot of people who connect now, there's still too many cars where they log in and all they get is like fuel and odometer, and they can't see tire pressure, they can't see other things. This is capable of getting them. It's just a matter of decoding, which we're trying to make a more open
Right.
source effort. So maybe you can, if your car is not well supported, you could contribute to decoding the DBC files for your vehicle. Either way, we're going to start making more progress on that soon, and people will see more and more data for their car over time without having to buy new hardware. In most cases,
Right.
this is limited. Like this can't lock and unlock your car door. You might be able to plug something into it that can, but we're working on adding more decoding functionality so that over time people will just see more and more. And yeah, it can read way more than you might think. There's obvious stuff about engine load and RPMs and fuel level and tire pressure, oil life, that kind of stuff, but also like ambient air temperature, barometric pressure. There's so many things that it picks up. We're also going to do events like hard braking, speeding, and not to tell on you, but we'll create the event for you, and whoever you want to share that with, that's up to you. But we'll create events like that. Maybe you want to track your kids or something. So
Right.
we'll add more of those. Try to add more ways to send data back to the vehicle as well. Lock and unlock the car, open and close the trunk, and frunk. We have that supported for Tesla. Actually, can't close the trunk because I don't think they have a power close on those. But you get the point. Eventually, it'll be self-driving commands. And right. So, and then what happens with that data? It's probably the next part of it, right?
Mm.
Right now, we're storing all that data securely, and we're very privacy and user centric in how we approach all of this. The idea is that this is like it's like Proton Mail, like more of like a privacy centric email service. We'll store them for you. We'll store the data for you, but we're only sharing it with people you authorize.
Right.
So as the owner of the vehicle ID NFT, you are the admin on the car who can then decide which other accounts get access to the data for that car. And our backend, where we store your data, will not share that data unless the person coming to request it has been given on-chain authorization from you as a permission that's kind of logged on on that NFT, so you can see all this on chain who you've shared with. And if they have that permission, they can come in and see your car in the app, and other applications can access your vehicle data and stuff. But if you haven't shared it, they can't get it. And right now,
Right.
we're the only ones, Digital Infrastructure Inc., we're the only ones that store vehicle data for users. But the idea is that in the future, it's like email, where you could have Google do it, you could have Yahoo do it, you could have Microsoft do it. You could also store it on your own home server. The protocol is the protocol, and as long as how you store that is up to you. So anybody can store it. It's cryptographically verifiable, and all these different storage providers will run a similar piece of software that will make sure that it's only handing off data to verified uh, people that you've decided to share with.
That's cool. That's cool. You've said something about allowing people to kind of add more features or ensure decode the data files of their car if the device doesn't support it. What programming language is your code based on like based on?
Starting to get out of my territory a little bit. Uh, I don't even want. I have some words I think are the correct ones to say, but I don't even want to risk it and sound like I don't know what I'm talking about. There is kind of like with DBC decoding, there's just like a stream of information coming off of the CAN bus that this thing is capturing, and it kind of comes off
Right.
as a messy string of whatever. And usually it's some like divide by 6, add 3, to get the actual value. Like this thing is fuel level. Oh, okay, didn't know that. Divide by 6, add 3 gives you the percentage fuel in the car or something like that. um is like usually then how you would decode it, and it's a lot of just kind
Right.
of guessing and checking, and so it's much less of like a complex engineering task and much more of a trying to get in the weeds and do some decoding. So that's more that project, and we still haven't really, we want to open this up so anybody can kind of you know submit pull requests to some repo that has the uh, different DBC files in it, and then we can test them and roll them out to more people. Maybe
Right.
even put little DIMO bounties attached to those. We haven't set that up yet though, and it's a little bit complicated. We're working on it, but and then how do you scalably test all those things and so on. There's a lot of safety factors to consider. I mean, these are safe devices. There's thousands of them out there already, not just ours, but uh, OBD devices are very popular, been around for years and years. Cars are designed to have them plugged in. It's just we don't want to overwhelm the CAN bus and create any type of issue for the user at all, or allow it to drain excess battery or whatever. So we're very, very careful about kind of what makes it out onto the devices as an update.
Right. Yeah, and I think that totally makes sense. Would you then say that this decoding is needed because not all car manufacturers have an open API or the kind of openness approach that manufacturers like Tesla do?
Yeah, there's a bunch of, well, that's different because the CAN bus really wasn't necessarily meant. There are a set of standard kind of codes for vehicles. A lot of them, especially after 2008, which is kind of why we have that cutoff,
Yeah.
they started to standardize a bit more of the very common signals. But if you wanted to get throttle position on Mercedes, especially like with plug-in electric hybrids, like they
Mhm.
have, it's like these are new control systems, new pieces of equipment, and the OEMs kind of invent their own way of passing those signals. And if you're talking about Mercedes and you're a Mercedes dealership, well, then they just give you the tools that work. They know what it is, but each automaker is a little bit different. So for a third party company that's not kind of like officially integrated, we have to kind of figure it out, and that makes it harder.
Yeah. Well, it's kind of wild when you think that like like, most car manufacturers don't use a standardized software. It's always a bit bespoke for that car manufacturer. You look at other devices. I mean, you look at laptops, you look at cameras, you look at phones. Like there's a pretty clear, standardization of the data, the workflow, the way they work, and just yeah, cars just seem to be a little bit not there yet. Which I guess it's a really good gap in the market for something like DIMO to come along and kind of standardize all of that.
If for all the reasons I mentioned earlier, like it's why it can't be. The automaker, they just would not trust some central party with that type of
Right.
thing, and there was no need to historically. And also, they're hardware manufacturers. They're all really trying so hard to keep up with Tesla on the software, self-driving, electrification side, and it is like such a culture shock to try to take a company that had been perfecting a gasoline vehicle and its manufacturing and scaling and distribution and hardware side to now say, by the way, you're also a software and electronics company now. It's like, okay, good.
Yeah.
Just like what DNA do they have? What talent do they have? Even a lot of like the complex technological parts, like that's outsourced to Bosch, and they put Bosch parts inside of a Ford or something like that. So it's a huge pivot for these car companies to try to do this. It explains how we got to where we are, but also without blockchain, we would just stay where we are in this regard for a long time. Um, really until it was like required by the government that everybody use one, DMV server for this stuff. But more realistically, it would just never happen without a project like DIMO and blockchain.
Yeah, yeah, no, 100%. So going back to the rewards and the data sharing mechanism, right? If you choose to share your data with the network or with manufacturers or with anyone else, then you can be rewarded for it in terms of demo tokens. And is that like a weekly or a monthly distribution?
Yeah, so there's a couple different ways that DIMO tokens are earned. Right now, the two ways people earn DIMO tokens is every week some goes out, and that's just kind of like the default baseline issuance. It's like the block reward, in Bitcoin and Ethereum. And there was from the beginning 450 million DIMO tokens allocated to that, including the airdrop. So the airdrop was almost like, if issuance had been going for a year before it launched.
Right.
That was kind of, a similar number to what was actually put out there. And then so right now it's like 900 something thousand tokens a week, and that's just going down 15% a year. As more cars are added to the network, there's more people splitting that reward every week.
Right.
But also, other dynamics change, and people still remain pretty happy with the rewards. That's the baseline front. And it's intended to kind of go down and go away over time because eventually people will earn more and more of the rewards for doing useful things on the network. And today you can go into our mobile app and go to our marketplace and
Mm.
work, book a maintenance appointment with Repair Pal. You can offset your carbon footprint, do all kinds of stuff in there. And those things will often have kind of like a demo reward associated with it, kind of like a credit card, like point that you get
Right.
when you that kind of thing. So people can earn that way as well. One thing I should mention, the only time that we share a user's data, there's kind of an implicit opt-in. There's an opt-in when you use the mobile app that we are allowed to share anonymous and aggregated data, truly anonymized. Like we're not,
Right.
can and what we've done so far is we've sold users cell coverage data to a company called Coverage
Okay.
Critic. They're just looking to see, because our devices have AT&T and T-Mobile in it. They just want to
Mhm.
know the signal strength in different areas, and we just give them a generic kind of like blob of it. So really can't tell. I guess they can tell that a demo connected vehicle was in that vicinity, you know, um, at some point in recent history, but they really can't tie it back to the user. We monetize that on behalf of users, again, as a part of our kind of opt-in when you use our mobile app. But with the money that we get for that, we then share as demo tokens back to the users. So people are already kind of earning above baseline for having these, and it's a small amount now, but it will grow over time. There's demand for weather data, traffic data, battery performance data, and electric vehicles. Like there's all kinds of things that are kind of truly anonymized that people could make money from the data on. So
Right.
that's kind of where the tokenomics stand today. In the future, as we're starting to shift towards this developer platform where I can share my data with my insurance company, with a online social community for just Porsche owners. I can share it with a peer-to-peer car sharing app like Turo, whatever. Those developers pay for access to the data, and some of that reward comes back to me. Some of that goes to the data storage provider, and some of that is burned. It is kind of the model that we're starting to flesh out more, and we'll uh, hope to put together some type of proposal on sometime this year. So
Right.
that's more long term tokenomic dynamics. Is it's like when you're sharing your vehicle, when you're minting and pairing and unpairing cars and burning cars, whatever. When you're doing things on the network, when you're sharing your data, when someone's subscribing to data each month, there's going to be some tokens going to users, tokens going to data storage providers, and some tokens being burned.
That's cool. And what do you think are the current use cases for this anonymized data? Like, what are some of the biggest, I guess, aggregators of this data, and what do they build with it?
Yeah, I think so. There definitely is a great use case for just like buying the data for the data's sake. And so I don't want to discount it, but the bigger thing is definitely applications. Like the value on iPhones isn't buying GPS data from users, although there's value in that. Like if you subscribe to everybody's iPhone's GPS, you might know where people are gathering and traffic data. Like there's I guess monetary value, but the real value with an iPhone is the fact that you can access Spotify and Audible and Uber and whatever else, right? And have that like
Right.
direct relationship to someone providing you real utility. So to answer your question on data aggregation first, sure, buying cell coverage data, traffic data, EV performance data, autonomous vehicle driving data, being the source of truth. What happens when an autonomous vehicle gets in an accident with
Right.
another one, and it's like they have the autonomous driving system from one company, parts from another company, manufactured by a different company, maybe with like an operator from another company sitting in the front seat. Like, who's at fault? What happened here? What's this? What's the equivalent of the black box inside of an airplane? So there's lots of uses for just acquiring vehicle data. McKinsey had a cool report on this. They said they think it's $600 a year for per car, which is a lot. Maybe it's
Yeah.
not a lot compared to the cost of a car, but in terms of like what you could monetize for a user every year, $600 is not immaterial per car, and there's billions of cars out there. So that's the kind of pure data monetization side, but really where we've leaned in more, and I think there's a bigger opportunity is in all of the new use cases that, oh, well, if I can subscribe to your data, now I can offer you a much better insurance policy, even if I'm not like seeing if you're speeding and whatnot. If I just know how often you're driving, um,
Right.
if you could build better versions of Uber, you could build better versions of Turo, you could build um, better ways. You could tap into DeFi for financing your vehicle. I plan to give this talk next week in Denver, where I have this entire used car marketplace built, and it's kind of like OpenSea or Blur, because it's an aggregator of all these
Right.
on-chain listings of vehicles. The vehicles are all NFTs, and their verified data is shared with an analytics company, which then gives the vehicle a really comprehensive health score. So it's like knows exactly where the car's been driven up. It was like, was it driven on salty roads up in the Northeast over potholes, or was it driven, in the South or in the Northeast, or was it driven in the Southeast and it's, sunshine and clear, like the mileage,
Right.
is different. The how is your EV charged? Were you always overcharging, like, supercharging it and hurting the battery? What's the health of it? So pulling all that data together, like a real good health score for the vehicle. Um, then I go in that demo, I go to sell my car, I go to buy the car. I'm able to trade in my vehicle on chain because my car is also an NFT on chain and my loan's on chain. So it knows how much I still owe. And it's like click, 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 everything just swaps. And, you go to a place to exchange, you swap keys, couple people sign a transaction, and boom, everything just kind of goes on chain. And like the value, not just there's some definitely like user experience value, but as somebody who used to work at vroom.com in kind of used car e-commerce, the behind the scenes mess of just like fax machines, paperwork, calling,
Oh yeah.
DMVs, all of that is just insane. And the customer ends up paying for it in one way or another because these businesses need to make money. So much value can be added by modernizing our infrastructure on vehicle commerce and communications and use cases. So that's really where I think more value is going to be unlocked.
Right. Well, even the fact that it's all recorded on an immutable ledger and you can actually trust this because it is a trustless system, you can trust that. Well, like you said, it's been driven in a certain way and it was charged in a certain way, and you have a confirmation that all of the like it just gives you more trust on a secondary market. Do you remember the times when people used to artificially roll back the mileage on cars and just sell them on the secondary market? I can't really do that anymore nowadays, but you could do it like up to, I think, 10, 15 years ago. You could technically do that on an older
Yeah.
car. You could just take it to the black market and just, you know,
People still sell a lot of their cars on Craigslist. It's a shockingly, it's whatever percent of cars you think are sold private party, the number is probably higher. Like most people
right.
sell their cars. And in that case, it's like you show up with an envelope full of cash. You're kind of just like, maybe you bring your brother-in-law. He's got, just like, please, if this goes badly, help me, and you're just hoping the car that you buy isn't going to just fall apart within 3 blocks after you get it. Uh, And that's still often a better way to sell your car than trading it into a dealer. Usually the price you get is better selling it that way than give it to a dealer, then they mark it up and sell it for more. So this kind of goes to show you how much room there is for improvement in these transactions. And also kind of, again, being in room and being on the inventory side for a little bit, I could tell you, like, the lack of information and information asymmetry in these transactions means that we have to lowball people on their trade-in offers, because one in every 10 cars we're going to lose 10 grand on because there's some major issue with it that we couldn't find in a visual inspection. People think it's all like, I need to look at the car to appraise its value. Paintless dent repair, tires, that stuff is like cheap for dealers to deal
Oh
with,
yeah.
more or less. Engine issues, electric vehicle battery problems, like that's the really big thing. If they're going to try to fix it, or worse, they just like don't and hand it off to the person and that they sell it to and hope for the best. But if they can get that type of data, a lot of these more tech forward companies have just been giving instant offers based on odometer and trim alone recently. That's enough information for them to go off of. So we
Right.
can, yeah, we can improve a lot of aspects of commerce, not just the speed of it, but like people spend 12 grand a year on their cars. That's too much. We can get a lot of that back. Even making a small percentage improvement in that is a lot of money, and we can make a big percentage improvement in that.
Yeah. Do you think car manufacturers use that data when you go into like a buyback program with them? Like if you sell your car back to BMW?
I mean, I don't know. I don't work there, but I would bet almost anything that they do not. They might use a couple different markers. I'm sure they're using odometer, but
Yeah.
I really doubt that they're looking at like where the car was driven, how it was driven, hard braking events, acceleration, engine load, like
Right.
how much like you're redlining it. Like they're probably not looking. I would be shocked if they were collecting that and looking at it. They've whenever we talk to automakers, they don't look at DIMO as competitive. They're like, oh, thank God somebody's doing something, because it's just been so bad for so long, and we've tried, and our company's not built for this. There's a reason that Samsung and LG and others like using Android rather than building their own OS from scratch, right? They just want to focus on making great hardware. So
Right.
yeah.
No, and I think that makes sense, honestly. Okay, so obviously Demo is really good for B2C, but are there any B2B use cases that you're seeing right now or that you'd like to encourage going forward? Things like Uber or similar applications that could more efficiently manage their fleet.
Yeah, I think of Demo a lot like Ethereum, and Demo Mobile being kind of like MetaMask in that scenario, Rainbow, or whatever. Pick your favorite wallet. MetaMask, for example, it's awesome. You can see your NFTs, you can send, you can receive, you can swap in there. So it does some of the basic stuff in there, but the biggest thing that it does is it connects you to all the other cool things built by other businesses on the network, and
Right.
that's kind of really our intention as well. And right now, we're like Ethereum with just MetaMask and a couple small applications, but in the future, the main reason that you get connected to Demo will not be to access the Demo mobile app. We want that to continue to be a great app and to be something that everybody does want. But the same reason you don't buy an iPhone purely for the calculator or purely for the phone or the calendar,
Right.
you'll download Demo because, well, yeah, I want Demo mobile to check in on fuel levels and set alerts for my cars and this and that. But I also, but my mechanic uses, his systems run on top of DIMO. And when he makes entries in his system about the repairs he just did and sets reminders for me and this and that, that's all being attached to my kind of like DIMO glove box, and the data is passing with me. Now my records are immutably tied to the vehicle, forever, and that passes with me from owner to owner and that kind of stuff. Oh, and my dealership, my car came pre-installed with it because my dealership used it to find the cars on the lot and for their dealer management systems. So we intend for this to kind of be a ubiquitous infrastructure layer
Right.
for every business, every consumer. It'll be in the same way you couldn't imagine a computer without a browser, or a person without an email address or a phone. Like a car without DIMO will not really fit into the modern world in 10 years. So yeah, businesses will use it, individuals will use it to access different applications on top of it, and it will just kind of fade into the background as a piece of tech that comes standard with cars.
That's cool, man. And do you think, I'm sorry, do you currently have any partnerships with car companies that do any car companies are installing demo on their cars, or are they planning to in the future?
We're not quite there yet. Automakers, they like what we're doing, particularly because they have these connected vehicle subscriptions like Ford Pass, and people tend not to renew them after the free trial ends. And our users do renew them and keep them going. So they love that. And they
Well,
also
like
like what
heated
we're,
seats.
yeah, yeah. So they like that we do that for them. They like that there's somebody else out there trying to keep them competitive on the software side and
Right.
providing a great user experience, connected vehicle experience. Because a lot of people, people aren't necessarily buying Teslas just because a Tesla mobile app is great, but it's kind of all of that. It's like the Tesla mobile app's really good, the supercharger network, cool looking car. So they're trying to stay competitive. They like us for that. We're talking to different automakers. We have varying degrees of channels, and like whether it's just like an API agreement with them, like that kind of stuff. We have some of that stuff, but in terms of a more formal partnership where the cars are rolling off the assembly line connected to Demo, not quite there yet, but definitely on. I expect to see that, and not too distant future.
I mean, I've done a bit of research on demo beforehand, ahead of time. I read a little bit on the website. I noticed what some people are saying, and but like getting it from you, it just seems like the kind of solution that it should just, companies like car companies, automakers should just have cars roll out with that software pre-installed. Um, it seems like a cool solution. I would totally install that. I think it's totally cool to have that on. Um, do you have any new releases coming up apart from demo for cars, essentially? Because I think the idea, from what I gather from the website, is that you're envisioning an IoT, a blockchain-based IoT for more than just cars, even though you're only focusing on cars right now.
Mm, right. We're definitely going to keep ourselves focused on cars. If people want to adopt, a lot of what we're building is reusable, right? We call it the vehicle ID NFT. It's a great way to establish identity for um, an item that has a manufacturer, a model, and like a version number attached to it, and permissioning for accessing its data. There's no reason that technology couldn't be applied to any other IoT device.
Right.
The issue is the Web3 protocol aspect of it. You probably look at a company like Demo and think, must be a bunch of smart contract engineers over there. It's all blockchain. The blockchain bit is kind of at the bedrock, and it's really fundamental, and it's pretty simple and basic, and it's incredibly important. But that is not the majority of the work. The same as like the majority of the development in the Ethereum ecosystem is not at the core protocol layer. It's at like the yeah, and you have to have clients and node operators and Infura and Alchemy, like RPC endpoint, providers. You need to build OpenSea. Like most of the work is further up the stack. And so
Right.
if we try to make this work for all kinds of other devices, well, all right, now we need to have um, our backend needs to know when it's receiving data. We need to expose different types of endpoints and cater to different types of developers, and our go to market, our messaging, all of that will be a lot more diffuse. So as a strategy, Amazon started with books, right?
Right.
We're starting with cars that way, and the same way that Amazon dominated books before it really moved on, will dominate vehicles. And I think one cool thing about building this as a protocol that's more open is our digital infrastructure inc business might stay focused on cars forever, but the DIMO protocol can expand permissionlessly horizontally in whatever ways it wants to, in the same way that like nobody can constrain how Ethereum is developed and applied. Even Bitcoin, like there's no, it's not Satoshi over there that's decided that we're going to do Bitcoin NFTs now. People, jammed NFTs into Bitcoin recently to make that a thing, and it was never like part of the core roadmap that somebody set. So same thing will
Yeah.
happen with Demo eventually. That's ultimately necessary. It's like much more scalable to allow things to kind of happen organically that way. But yeah, we need to make sure that the car use case is solid before we try to move on to toaster ovens and Roombas and stuff like that.
That makes sense. Well, I wasn't thinking toaster ovens, but I was just thinking right now that you could apply technically the same kind of approach to homes, to buildings, apartment buildings and stuff like that. You could
Hmm.
have sensors, and you could measure the state of the apartment, or maintain, or record that information anonymously for whatever reasons,
Yep.
without hopefully turning it all into a dystopic universe where everything is super controlled. I think privacy is still really important, and I think Web3 is has been
Right.
so far quite good at maintaining privacy, um, and hopefully will continue to do so. We'll see. I mean, there's the discussion about CBDCs that kind of cooled down in the last few months. That was really active a few months ago. Um, it's tough to navigate, I guess, new emerging technology that has the possibility to create a transparent system of control without letting someone take advantage of that information, I guess.
Right. Look, it's going to happen in terms of technological advancement. The question is the one you asked, which is, or the thing that you were kind of getting into, which is it going to be privacy preserving and utopian, or is it going to be controlling and dystopian?
Yeah.
And like there's nothing magical about it per se. PCs and smartphones are basically the same thing. One's small, one's big. But with PCs, you can take them apart, add RAM to it, install whatever applications you want to, do whatever you want with them, install your own OS on it. You take an iPhone and you're totally locked in. And it's really just like one paradigm, kind of emerged and one out. And I think
Mm.
it's great timing that blockchain is kind of coming onto the scene now. We'll see more of these open models coming back because we can. We used to feel like we had to make this trade off, and for all the other reasons I mentioned too, where it's not even up to the consumer to trade off on their privacy. The automakers will not adopt, the Amazon or Apple or Google version of what we're building, because they're not going to trust that the terms won't change on them once they've fully adopted it and all of that. So it'll end up having to be a more open solution regardless. And the way that we're building this is really meant to be users fully in control. I think we can actually really show the industry, the world, how you can build a system like this that has all the benefits of data and programmability and all that kind of stuff without needing to make that compromise. Um, Not only that, but users are actually not only like is the are you not you have more control. The monetization and benefit is flowing more to you as the user, and the technology is more kind of open and configurable. It's like kind of the best of all worlds. Have your cake and eat it too. I know it sounds like a little too good to be true. It's why people get so excited about blockchains in the first place, is because they know that it kind of can do these things. And that's kind of how we're trying to build Demo.
Yeah, well, it sounds incredibly exciting. I think it's a great product that has a lot of potential, and I wish you guys all the best with it. I'll be keeping a close eye. If you have like a Discord or a Twitter or anything, um, I will probably end up lurking there just to kind of tag along with the progress, and maybe I'll start some of the repos to see how the code base is going to develop. Do you have anything that you want to share with the listeners at this stage? Any socials, any how to get the app or anything like that?
Yeah, I was just gonna say that it's drivedemo.com for the app in the store. That's the website for Digital Infrastructure Inc., our US Labs entity. So head there to learn about the project, get connected, all that. Demo.zone is the website for the foundation, and chat.demo.zone is the Discord. On Twitter, the main Twitter account is at demo_network. And so everybody should follow that, should download the app, connect your card today. As I mentioned, a lot of people can connect for free pretty quickly. And there's really like, you see more data, you earn, there's no cost. And if a cost ever is introduced as like a monthly subscription cost to stay connected, it'll be less than the rewards. It'll come out of the rewards, but for now, it's there's no cost to connect. And yeah, join the movement. I'm at
Awesome.
Rob M Solomon on Twitter as well if you want to follow me. I'm really close to 1,000 followers. I'm trying to like 995 right now.
Yeah, let's crack that. I don't know if I follow you, but I'll definitely will. I'll definitely keep in touch.
You could be the 1,000th follower.
Oh man. Listen, it's been a great conversation. I think I've learned a lot about Demo and about the ecosystem, and it's been genuinely a pleasure. I'm happy to have you on. You're welcome here. Any other point in the future, if you want to give like a year update, maybe a year in, to see kind of where we are, where the car manufacturing industry is, where the software side of things is, that'd be fascinating.
Appreciate that. Thank you.
Nice one, Rob. Thanks, everybody. Bye.
Bye.